Hey, welcome to the closing video training. Today I'm going to talk about the context for closing, why closing is mission critical to your network marketing business, and then I'm going to teach you the 5 secrets, I guess, of closing so that you can get the formal sales training that your business deserves. This will be about a half an hour. It's a free training on closing. You don't have to buy anything. If you go through this and you're like, yeah, I want more of this, I am going to invite you to a live closing workshop that I'm doing at the end because I can't talk to everybody live. I wish I could speak to you face to face right now. So I made you this video. But I would really love to be able to help you personally and live and to be able to get you going. So I'll tell you about that at the end. I'll also cover some frequently asked questions about closing when I do this workshop live. I normally do this workshop live for teams, but not everybody is with one of the teams that I work with, so I wanted to make sure to get this out for you. I'm also going to make sure I use my notes so I don't forget anything for you. It is 100 degrees in Southern California today. I'm recording this, so hopefully you're cool with the ponytail and the cotton t-shirt, and my money's on the fact that your hair is also in a ponytail as well as you watch this. So let's go ahead and jump in. What is closing? Why is closing so important? So first, I want to outline the difference between proactive closing and reactive closing. So reactive closing is probably the closing you're very familiar with that really brings a lot of those negative connotations and that high pressure, the feelings that kind of make you uncomfortable and nervous. And so reactive closing, the way I define it is, well, I guess let me back up a little bit. So closing is helping someone to do something that they already want to do, right? It's like getting them to the next action step. So even with your kids, when you're trying to get them to eat, right? If they actually eat the food, you have closed the sale, so to speak. So proactive and reactive closing. So reactive is that type of closing where you're overcoming objections. I'm sure you've heard of that term a lot. So when people ask me, hey, Tasha, what do you do when someone says, I want to talk to my husband? Well, if I were to teach you what to do that is a part of reactive closing. The other part of reactive closing is follow up, follow up, follow up, right? So you may have heard the fortunes of the follow up, just keep checking in and then eventually people will buy. The problem with those two areas of closing is that they are at a very, very high skill level. They take, if you don't have experience in sales and you're not formally trained on exactly how to do that, it doesn't feel very good for you. It doesn't feel very good for your customer, and you may already intuitively know that, which is why you might have some resistance to the concept of closing. The closing I teach is a proactive closing. So instead of calling them back over and over again or trying to have some awkward conversation where you're trying to convince them to buy something, proactive closing is having a prepared approach that really it just addresses what you know to be their basic objections. You just address it in advance in a comfortable outline that really flows in the right way. And then that way they are making the decision to purchase that first time so you don't have to overcome objections or follow up. So that sounds a lot better, right? Yeah, I think so. So I'm going to teach you proactive closing. Now, there are 5 areas in your business where you need to close. The first is setting up appointments. You need to close the sale of why they need to meet with you, right? The second is the most obvious, right? Closing initial sales, so customers' initial order to purchase. But there's more. You need to have continuing conversations about the product. Sometimes you even need to close people into using products they already have purchased so that they can get the most value out of it. The fourth area is in sharing your business opportunities. Recruiting is simply selling an idea. So you need to be able to get to the next action step, right? When you are recruiting someone. So you need to be able to close. And then even with your team members that you're mentoring, there are times where you're trying to train them to do something or you want them to do a particular action item. Well, you need to go through this closing process with them so they actually do the thing that you're talking about. So even for myself today, as I'm giving this training, right? I would consider you like someone I'm mentoring. And so I need to put everything in place so that you do the things that we're talking about today. So hopefully that makes sense. There's a lot of areas in your business where you need to be able to close. If you do not learn how to close, you will go crazy. Maybe you're already crazy. Maybe we're both crazy. But either way, it's really, really hard if you don't know how to close, because you're going to have less appointments. You're going to have to do way more work. You will have less customers. You have less people converting into business builders, and your team members, they might not listen to you or do what they need to do, right? That is probably not the business of your dreams. And I hate to break it to you, friend. You're in network marketing business, which is 100% commission based on the products you sell and the products that your team sells. So if you are in this like, hey, I'm not a salesperson, like you really are, you have to learn, you have to get this formal training. Otherwise, your business will not move forward. It would be like somebody who wants to be an engineer and they're like, yeah, and I did a lot of Legos, and so I think I'm good. I think I'm going to be able to make it as an engineer. Like, no, you need to go to school and learn the things that engineers learn, right? So it's the same thing with sales. You want to build a professional business that replaces a full-time income or builds incredible wealth for your family. You need to have the formal training in order to do that. So I'm going to give you some of that today, enough that you'll be able to take it away without being super overwhelmed. I'll tell you a little bit briefly about my story. I started selling when I was 20 years old, or right before I turned 20 years old. I was selling Cutco knives. So I don't know if you have heard of those, but basically I sold Cutco knives in home for a year, and then I was a manager for about 4 years after that. So my whole job was teaching 18-year-olds how to sell $1,000 sets of knives to housewives who didn't know that that person was coming over to sell them knives. And by the way, it was 100% referral business. So then that 18-year-old needed to be able to get more people to call to set up appointments, and they do that one at a time. And I did very, very well there. My mid-20s, I decided to, do a corporate job. So I was a recruiting manager and trainer. So I've done tons of training for people with sales backgrounds, without sales backgrounds. I've listened to thousands of customer interactions. And so I have a lot of experience in understanding things from the customer perspective. When I train people, here's kind of how I go. Number one, most important person in your sales process and in the decisions you make in your business is a customer. So customer first, your team second, and then you third. But I promise you, friend, that if you take care of your customer and your team, guess what? You're going to be in good shape. So that's a little bit about me. I love working with people one-on-one and in small groups. And so you'll see that the longer you follow with me. All right. Now I'm going to cover a bunch of info. I'm going to start the secrets in a second. Don't get overwhelmed if you can't get every word of my notes. I will go ahead and email you. You'll see in the next day or so an email come through with my actual notes that you can use. So if you're out and about right now, just keep playing. Absorb as much as you can. If you're able to take notes, cool. Just don't stress about it. I want to make sure you at least absorb some of this information. Okay. 5 areas that make closing an enjoyable process for you and your customer. Number 1, give an agenda so there are no surprises. People don't like surprises. One of the major objections or concerns or tensions that your potential customers have in a sales appointment, for example, is they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know how long it's going to take. They don't know how long you're going to be there. So just tell them that. It's being transparent. It's being honest. All you have to do is just tell them what's going to happen, and you're going to notice that your customers will just totally relax. Also, they might be worried that you are going to pressure them into something. So you're not going to, right? Like, you're a nice person. You just want to help people. I know you don't want to pressure people. Nobody does. So how about we just tell them that? So before you start any conversation, a sales conversation, maybe a mentor call, whatever, just let the person you are communicating with know exactly what you have planned. And then that way they can add to the agenda, or they just kind of know where they're going. They feel a lot more comfortable. Here's a couple of examples. So like for a sales conversation, right? I'm going to do most of my examples for the sales conversation. I might throw a couple other ones in here just so you kind of understand how these concepts apply across all those 5 areas where you want to learn how to close. So you could just say, today we're going to go over your health goals. We're going to talk about how to use blank product and the most popular packages. My part will take about 30 minutes. You don't have to buy anything, but if you see something you like, I'll help you order it today. Just really cool, and your customers will go like, okay, yeah, I'm good with that. Now, give an accurate time on how long your presentation is. I do not advocate anything over that, like your part is over 30 minutes, because I don't think people can really absorb that much. The same thing goes with your mentor call, right? You can just say, hey, today in our mentor call, we're going to go over this, this, and this. And it's going to be about an hour, right? And they'll go, okay, cool, that sounds good. And everyone feels really comfortable, and they trust you. They trust your guidance. So that's the first one. Give an agenda so there are no surprises. The second area that makes closing an enjoyable process for you and your customer is to gain input. And I have 3 really great, very simple input questions that you should be asking in your sales conversation to make sure you and your customer are on the same page, and that you're not boring them with information they don't need to know about. So once you do your agenda, today we're going to talk about your health goals, your how to use this product, 2 most popular packages. It's going to take about half an hour. You don't have to get anything, but if you do see something you like, of course, I'll help you place an order today. And then you ask this input question. What do you want to make sure we go over today? And then write down everything they say. This is important because it helps connect the dots between you and them. They'll also, a lot of times, they'll tell you their objections ahead of time so you know what to spend more time on. And that way, you're not just going off random tangents. You can just include that in your flow, and you're going to get a lot less tangents that take up a lot of time and kind of make it harder for your customer to really understand everything, because you're kind of just going in a bunch of directions. Everything gets kind of muddled. So that question, just to repeat it, is what do you want to make sure we learn about today? Now, after you get that list, the next question you want to ask is you want to get on the same page with their goals as they relate to your product. So the best way to do this is just to say, I don't want to bore you with details that you don't care about. So before we get started, tell me about some of your health goals. Now, some of them will tell you like their goals as they relate to the product in first input question. But if they don't, ask again. And if they do, and it's like a one-on-one, then just ask this question again. You'll probably get a couple more, which is really, really cool. And then you're going to be able to personalize some of the benefits of your products based on their specific situation. So it's going to be more meaningful to them. Also, people don't care how much you know about your product or your company until they know how much you care. So this proves that you are a kind person who likes to help people, because the first thing you're going to do is you're going to say, what about you? Tell me about your goals. What do you want to accomplish? What about fashion is so important to you? When it comes to buying cosmetics, what is so important to you? What kind of look are you going for, right? And why did you choose that? Like those types of things. But you got to do that first, because that's going to set the stage for your whole conversation. Once you learn all that and you have a good conversation, and that doesn't even need to take very long, like 3 minutes maybe. The third input question that really, really helps is just before you transition into telling them about like the background of your company, is to ask them, well, what do you know already about XYZ company? There's 2 huge reasons why I love this question, and it works really, really well. First, you want to know what they already know. They might know wrong stuff, and you're going to need to kind of make sure that they have the right information. But if they don't know anything, what they'll do is they'll draw in. They'll be like, oh, I don't know anything about your company, so tell me about it. And instead of them rolling their eyes or kind of being like, oh my gosh, yeah, blah, 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 blah about your company, now you are like, they're excited. They want to learn about the company. And so that changes their engagement during your company section because they realize that they don't really know a lot and you're going to be able to educate them, and then that has value for them. So the 3 questions for gaining input, I'll say them one more time, is what do you want to make sure you learn about today? I don't want to bore you with details about things you don't care about, so share with me some of your health goals. And what do you already know about XYZ company or XYZ topic or whatever? All right, cool. Number 3, personalize features and benefits for your solution. So I alluded to this a moment ago, but all those health goals, you're going to connect back to the product. So instead of saying product A does this, okay, that's super boring and no customer cares. Remember, the only thing that your customers care about is themselves. So what you have to do instead is say, okay, well, product A, earlier you mentioned blah, blah, blah. So product A is what you're going to use when blah, blah, blah. Okay? Make it personalized to their situation. Now, if you never talk to them about their situation, then you can't do this. And that's why that doesn't work. That's why you have to do that first, learn about them and their goals and their input, and then come back around. So here's a really simple example. Earlier you mentioned you have a stressful job. This essential oil lavender is going to help you to calm down at the end of the day so you don't have to drink 3 martinis and you're going to feel better and you're going to be able to sleep better, right? Earlier you mentioned you're really, really busy. And so this meal replacement shake is something you'll be able to make in like 30 seconds. You'll get the full nutrition of a full meal and you'll be good to go. You won't be missing lunch anymore and you won't lose energy in the middle of your workday, right? You see how that's personalized to them. And so they're like, oh yeah, I totally get it now, because you're connecting the dots for that customer. You can also do this with your team members, right? So if you say something, if they're like struggling with something, you say, well, earlier you mentioned you're really struggling with closing sales on one-on-ones. So if you start personalizing your features and benefits, it's really going to help you because your customers will connect the dots. You see how I did that? So it's all about connecting the dots and making sure your customer understands exactly how that's going to apply to them. Okay, 4th area that make closing an enjoyable process for your customer is success stories. When you pick success stories, though, make them relatable to that person's personal situation. Your success story, it's kind of cool, but you don't have as much credibility because you're the one selling stuff, right? So you have a vested interest, where if you tell a story about someone who's very similar to your customer, it's different, right? So let's say your customer has 3 young kids. They are all school age, and you're going to say, okay, well, my friend Catherine, she has a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 10-year-old, and when school starts up again, they tend to get sick a lot. And so this particular vitamin, this is what you're going to want to make sure that they have when they start the new school year, so that their immune system is stronger and they have more energy to just deal with all the changes and for all the new germs that come across when you have school, right? And they're like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. I don't want my kids to get sick when school comes around. So that's an example of how to use a success story. Use other success stories. If it's success stories of people they know personally, that is even better, because most of your business is going to be referrals or hosting events. Use those people's success stories, not just the ones you have in your back pocket, and they lend a lot of credibility and really help connect the dots for your customer. Okay, number 5 area to make closing an enjoyable process for your customer is to lock it down through simplicity. A lot of companies have a lot of packages that customers can buy. And that's really overwhelming for a customer. As someone who works with network marketers, I'm sure you can appreciate that I end up sitting through a lot of network marketer presentations. And a lot of companies have like 10 to 20 options for people to buy. As a customer, I implore you, stop overwhelming me. If a customer is confused, they will not buy and they will leave and they will think about it. So the best thing to do is to make a decision ahead of time on what are your typical starter kits that apply to probably 90% of your customers. Now you're going to have some one-offs where you're going to have to show them like a different kit or package or whatever, and that's fine. But focus specifically on the ones that are the most popular, that are the best to get started. And pick two and just give them the option between those two, and then you can move around. Customers can pick between two, and that makes it really easy. But like if you hand me a flyer with 10 different things on it, I'm going to look at it and be like, oh my gosh, I have no idea. I need to go and I need to think about it. I need to research or whatever. So just give them two and just ask them which one they'll prefer. And most people, if you've done a good job with all the rest of the stuff, they're just going to pick one. It's not super complicated. It doesn't have to be. Don't worry about missing out on an opportunity to sell the $1,000 thing right now if your closing percentage is below 50%. My goal is that you can get it to at least 80% of your people are buying stuff, so everyone feels really good, and then you can kind of go from there. So the fifth area is to lock it down through simplicity. So let me do a quick recap. Number one, use an agenda. Let them behind the curtain. Number two, gain input using those three what seems like magic questions. Number three, personalize the features and benefits back to their personal situation. Number four, tell success stories of others in their situation. And number five, use a simple next step with a choice of two. And that works when you're doing appointment times, all sorts of stuff. All right, so those are the secrets. Now, when I run this training live, I usually get a ton of questions. And so the questions that I get most frequently, I'm going to just answer them for you now since you're not able to ask me directly. So here are the most frequently asked questions when I do this with a group. First is, does this approach work with a large group like 7, 8, 10 people? Second question, what about all of my other amazing products? You only want me to cover like 10? That's crazy. What exactly do I say at the end to get the order? I want to fully educate my customers so they know everything. And now they don't know everything, Tasha, because you're asking me just to say, be super simple. So what the heck? I can't do everything in 30 minutes. And then the last question is, closing is great, Tasha, fine, but don't you know anything about how I need to recruit? How does this apply to recruiting? So I'm going to answer those questions. Before I do that, though, let me just, in case you have to hop off, let me go ahead and just tell you really quickly about my live closing workshop. If you're thinking, okay, this is really good stuff. Now, I need to write my own sales outline that works really, really well. All this stuff makes sense to me. How do I do that? Okay, so let me go ahead and tell you about my live closing workshop. Now, earlier I told you that I would really, really love to help you. And so what I do is run a 3-hour live closing workshop where I'm going to help you personally craft your sales conversation for your company and your product so that it is killer and it works and everybody's super jealous of your results because you watched this closing thing. So it's going to be a small group. My goal is for you to make sales to 80% of your people. And so that's basically, that's what it is. So let me go ahead and show you what all that looks like. Okay, so you are here right now. Now I know you're probably watching this on your mobile, but it was going to be way too hard for me to figure out how to do that. So I'm just going to walk you through all this stuff on the computer real quick. Now, most network marketer trainers are going to charge you like $100 to sit in a room of thousands of people to hear them yap for hours and hours and hours, and you leave excited, but you're overwhelmed. To meet in a small group like this and have you leave with an awesome sales conversation outline, they'll probably charge you like thousands of dollars. I looked on Eric Worre's site, and he says that one day of his attention, and this is as like a group, is like $15,000. Yikes. But I have a different vision for my business, and that's to make top-notch sales and leadership training affordable for everyone. So this 3-hour training plus the recording will only be $59, and it's me live. So what's cool about it is one of my students, Emma, she was making sales on less than 40% of her people by the time before she came to this closing workshop the first time I did it, and now she makes sales to 86% of the people that she works with or that she meets with, which is really, really cool. So right now you're watching on this site right here, and there's a button that says I need more of this, so you can go ahead and click there, and you'll see this page with my colors on there, and it's going to be online via Zoom. So I don't know if you use Zoom, but I'll just send you a link. You just click on it and you'll log right in. It's going to be August 13th, and it's going to be at 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So you'll have whatever countdown is there. There's a big red button to register, and you'll be able to read up on what's the closing workshop, how much is it, what is the agenda, and then it's just going to be at your house and at my house. So there's me right there. So once you click on this register button, it's going to kick you to where I host all my online materials. Now the free trial is just like a video on what is the closing workshop, but you're just going to go ahead and click the buy button right here. You're going to sign up. You're going to need a login and a password and stuff. And then you'll create the account, and then you'll be able to put your credit card information in. So it's really simple to do once you get access to this particular online course. Back behind, once you have a login, it's going to give you all the links, the workbook, and all that kind of stuff. So that would be really the most logical next step for you. And, if that day doesn't work out for you, just let me know. I haven't planned the next one yet, but I'll let you know. Or you can kind of just go up here and check out some of my other online programs that maybe aren't at that time that you can participate in if you'd like to learn more. But my opinion is that this is really the next most logical step to help you to get the most bang for your buck as you move forward. So I'm really excited about that. Make sure you register, and if you have any questions, let me know. And speaking of questions, let me go ahead and get to those frequently answered questions that I told you I would. So here we go. Does this even work on a big class? So you'll notice that the tips I gave you were really geared towards a one-on-one conversation. There are a couple of adjustments you need to make if your group is like 6 people or more. The first is in the agenda, where you're going to want to let them know that there's a lot of people, but it is really important to you that you get some feedback from them. So any help that they can give you to make sure that we stay on track would be really, really awesome. One of my clients, Tasha, did this just a week ago, I think. She had 11 people there, and she sold over $2,000 in that one event. So it definitely works. And then when you get to the input question, instead of asking each question one at a time, you can just say, okay, so we're just going to go around real quick and just remind me of your name and one thing either that you want to make sure you learn about today, or a goal that you want to make sure that I address, or a problem or something. And then just have each of them do one. If you have 10 people, there's going to be some overlap, and then you'll be able to personalize the features and benefits to each person so that they understand that you are trying and you care about them. And a lot of stuff is going to relate to other people, even if you're not speaking specifically to them. So that's how you handle a group. Next question. What about all of my other amazing products? Stop it. Your customer is overwhelmed. They cannot handle more than 10. Stop talking and just save it for a second appointment or for some sort of retention strategy that you might have. The next question. What exactly do I say at the end to get the order? So I told you about giving a choice of 2 options, and here's what you say. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you this question. Would you like to go ahead and get this kit for free? Or no. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you this question. Would you like to go ahead and get this kit and get your blah, blah, blah for free by placing the order today? So I usually like to have you give like just something that they can take home that day as an incentive that they can to buy the kit that day, as opposed to maybe later and then they just kind of never get around to it. If you're worried about fully educating your customers on everything, just don't worry about it. They're overwhelmed already. They're not going to be able to retain everything the first time through. And a lot of times the desire for us to educate on everything has more to do with our ego than our customers. So remember, customer first, team second, you third. So you have to think about what is the amount of information that my customers can absorb. And if they ask additional questions, of course you can answer them. But that is the most important thing. What will help the customer absorb what I'm giving them, and then also place an order so they can use the stuff and actually meet their goals, versus being super overwhelmed with all the information and feeling like they need to think about it or like their head is spinning a little bit. So really keep it simple for the sake of your customers. And then what does closing have to do with recruiting? Everything. So selling, like recruiting and selling a business opportunity is selling. And so you have to have those basic sales skills. If you can't sell a product, you're not going to be able to sell an intangible opportunity that takes a ton of work and that they're afraid of failing. So you have to get your foundation in selling your products first so that you can prove that it's not that hard. And then second, so that you can have better skills in order to recruit. You don't have to be the best salesperson in the world, but you need to be proficient enough to be able to show that growth in this business is possible, and also so that you can train those people. If you don't know how to close, you're not going to be able to train them. So it's really important. And then when you're speaking with customers and they just see, wow, that was really easy, like that was effortless, there was no pressure, and so on and so forth, they're going to be more attracted to your business. They're not going to be attracted to your business if you have a 90-minute long presentation and then you have to call people 6 times in order to follow up. Nobody wants to do that. So your ability to make sales on those first appointments will directly impact your brand and how your customers feel about you and your business, and whether or not they're attracted to this business as well. You must learn how to close simply to build your foundation, and then also to close on the concept of them running their own business. So that is why closing is so important. I know I went over a ton today. I hope you really, really liked it. I'm going to go ahead and end the training. If you have any questions, you can email me at tasha@emergeSalesTraining.com. I'll also send you some additional emails, just maybe regarding the closing workshop, maybe other blog posts that I have written in the past to continue to support you on your journey into the whole learning how to sell. So congrats on making it to the end, and I hope to talk to you soon.